So
Yeah, I
they
mean,
kind of
just
have to build
drop the
up.
VODs, drop the post-match interviews.
Hmm.
Like the only thing they've uploaded since creating this channel has been the Toasty versus
Like the
Shochi bot game that they did, and that has 31 views right now. By the way,
yeah.
this is getting outwatched by the Salt Mine guys. I mean, come on, like. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Salt Mine. This is Season 4, Episode 4. I'm on top of it this time. Unfortunately, Slayer has been the victim of a Spectrum outage, so he will not be able to join us this week, which means it's just me, Quax, and Gromp. Quax, officially now a co-host of The Salt Mine. Welcome aboard. I think it's been kind of unofficial for a while now, but
Mhm.
welcome aboard, man. Happy to have you, especially now as it looks like we're the only two hosts for the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to be here. Definitely was viewing the salt mine from afar for a really long time when I started casting a little bit over a year ago, and so I'm glad to be I was glad to be a guest, and now I'm even more glad to be an official member. So it's really exciting to be here, and yeah, a little unfortunate, like you said, that Slayer couldn't join us, but it is what it is. We got Grump, my favorite jungle camp, if I do say so myself, joining us here for this episode, and it's gonna be kind of an interesting one because we had a bit of an interesting week out of NACL. Obviously, the money matches are done, so that's something we'll be talking about as well. But some upsets as well. I feel like NACL is definitely a place where upsets aren't really the norm. I feel like obviously that's why they're called upsets, but I think in NACL's case, it definitely is rare to see a bottom tier team or a team ranked lower beat a top seeded team. And we got one or two of those over this past weekend, so that was also super exciting to see, especially as playoffs are inching ever closer, right? Dragonsteel locked in playoffs, and we're starting to see the fight to get in and secure it for them. Other teams fight in and secure it for themselves in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I think it's been, a fun Super Week. The final Super Week. I'm glad that we're not going to have 8 or 9 series a week anymore. That's a little bit much to
Hmm.
go through in VOD review, especially now that LCS is back too. Especially once OQ2 starts ramping up here before too long. So it's good. I think I like. I still have plenty of complaints about how they order the schedule, but I think, these two Super Weeks back to back while LCS is on the hiatus, then
Hmm.
going back to a normal amount of matches a week, that does my heart good. I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to getting back to a bit of a normal schedule for our final four to round out the regular season and to really get some extra time to kind of deep dive on these teams as we get into the very end of the season. Let's yap for a couple of minutes first to kick things off about OQ1. I mean, the first
Yeah.
NACL OQ just wrapped on up. Dragoon's Goons taking away first place there at the end over Lotus in 3-1 fashion. For those who don't know, Dragoon's Goons is, I'm tempted to say it's pieces of the lit roster, but it's really only
It
Dragoon.
is.
It's only really
Yeah.
Dragoon and Kisno. From
It's
the lit roster. So it's Dragoon, Kisno, Sudsy, Array, and Daption. So it's
Caption.
really it's Sudsy, who's an honorary NACL player because he's qualified like 3 times now, and it is
Yeah.
yeah, and then just players who didn't manage to find NACL teams after last split just kind of got lost in the shuffle between spring and summer. So it's a fun team. I think it's not a huge surprise that they end up walking away in first. I've already previously stated that I think Daption not being in the league is a bit criminal. The return of Winsome and
Hmm.
JJ for a time, JJ
Yeah.
Skytech. Yeah, a couple of supports returning here. I think really kind of put the nail in the coffin for his ability to start this split, and I think that's my only real thing that I'm super upset about as far as the offseason changes. So
Hmm.
good for him fighting his way to get back in. Good for all those players for fighting their way to get back in. I think they'll have a shot in
Yeah.
promotion, especially if AOE doesn't substantially improve their form with the additions that
Hmm.
they've made.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of people like to talk about the top teams in the NACL, but I do feel like, with OQs, you can relay it back to the bottom teams as well. Like we do have um we do have like namely like CCG, we do have AoE, and so like it is kind of interesting to theory craft how this team would do if you put them against AoE or CCG. I will say though, I think Dragoons Goons winning it was a surprise for a few people. I was actually kind of banking on Lotus winning because Lotus had a tear right
Yeah.
throughout this
Oh,
this open qualifier in
I was fully
particular.
Lotus pilled. I was the
Hmm.
only Lotus 3-0 prediction on the community prediction slide. So I was right
What?
there with you, brother. I really thought like I watched the Lotus versus Pulse series. I cast the Lotus versus Pulse series, and I was just like, I mean,
Yeah.
Dardoch is unleashed, dude. And it kind of like
Hmm.
I kind of got into the cycle, right? I was like, Dardoch's
Hmm.
never played jungle in tier 3 before. He's been like relegated to support, but now it's Dardoch. He's back on his main role in a low level that he hasn't played on in like a decade. He's just rolling fools, and I watched him do it to Will, who was
Hmm.
an NACL player just last year. I was really thinking like, you know what? I think it's just, Dardoch Robbie gap is just too much. I thought they were going to take it. Didn't end up playing out that way. So I mean, props to the Goons, but I do think
Yeah,
both these teams will be in the promotion tournament come the end of
I
split 2.
agree. I think Lotus was kind of a favorite for me too because this is a team that didn't lose a single game until the finals, right? They had a perfect Swiss stage. They beat Dragoons Goons. That was probably one of the most fun games I've ever had the time to cast. Like Dragoons Goons lost in the 4-0 bracket, and it
To
was a thing
Pulse,
where
right? Yeah.
people, oh yeah, they lost to Pulse. Like both of these teams actually lost to Pulse. Lotus,
Yep.
yeah, I made a mistake. Lotus did lose to Pulse in the Swiss stage, and I kind of felt like this was a squad. Like you said, I felt like Dardoch was definitely the bread and butter of this squad, but I was also really rooting for the squad to win because I feel like those were players that were in like the almost on the opposite spectrum of the Dragoons Goons players, where you've seen the Dragoons Goons players in NACL, other than Dardoch, and I believe no, I don't think Porsche has been in tier two.
Robbie Bob has
Robbie
had some
Bob,
time. The others
yeah,
have not.
like I really wanted to see Porsche and Sushi in particular like
Yeah.
win it because I'm a Sushi stan. I'm gonna say it right here right now. I think he is the best AD carry in like this. I thought he was the best AD carry in this tournament. And so I was kind of sad to see them lose, but yeah, I think the Goons overall just felt more cohesive. I think Dragoon himself in particular had a really good tournament. Um, so yeah, I think this team, you look at them in promotion tournament. I expect them if this squad, stays together, or if hopefully everything works out, um, that they'll be able to make it far. But I don't know. I feel like Dragoon and Kisno in particular, like these are guys that have made it on. They were on Lit and they were in NACL, so I am interested to see how they return and like if there's like an attitude toward that because I definitely think the attitude reflects in play, especially in open qualifiers and in promotion tournament. We've seen that like time and time again, especially with the last promotional tournament.
Yeah. And I think Dragoon and Kisno weren't the worst part of that lit roster for sure. I think
Oh no,
they were not the
definitely
weak
not.
point of the team. So I'd be interested in seeing them with a different setup here. And I think, I don't think they come into NACL and are like a first place or top half team or anything.
Hmm.
But I think it would be interesting to get to see them try their hand with another roster. And, I could see them falling into like Blue Otter territory where,
Yeah.
despite their performance this week, I have still been pretty impressed with what they've been able to put together, and I don't think that they'll end up bottom two. I think they'll get a chance to survive in the league and play out another split. But that remains to be seen a little bit. Overall, though, fun OQ1. Keep your eyes on the Ducky Getters, just
Please
because,
do.
yeah,
I
I don't think they'll make it. Like, I don't think they'll
I
end.
don't think so
I don't think
either,
they'll be
but
top four at the end of the
I want
day,
them to.
but they don't need to be, right? Like I
No.
think they'll probably run it back. They'll almost surely be top 16 again because they will get seeding advantages. Maybe they even make top 8 again, and then we'll see who stands out the most at that point when we get some more footage of them, and presumably this team will get like cannibalized, and there will be some players though that are on our lips in the future as like
Mhm.
top tier players on top tier qualifier teams. My eyes are on Bio for right now as like kind of the big breakout
Mhm.
star from this
No,
team.
Bio for sure was the best player. I think what made the Ducky Getters such a fun team was not like that they played well, which they obviously did, right? They were a very cohesive team, especially in team fights. For a team that just came together, this team gelled really well around fights, which is rare to see, I think, in these teams that are just kind of scrapped together for these OQs. But it was also their unorthodox like style of play, right? I think that's what made them really interesting and investing to watch, and why I personally am maybe Ducky Getters aren't number one in standings, but they're number one in my heart because they pull out the most insane stuff, right? We've gotten stuff like the Nautilus mid, we got the famous Rengar, Ivern, Rough Beans in particular. While Bio I would say is the best player, Rough Beans to me was the heart and soul of that team, pulling out weird pick after weird pick after weird pick and really enabling Bio. So I would say, while Bio was definitely the steal and was definitely the deadly part of the sword, and Rough Beans was like the hilt, the thing that you hold on to drive that forward for sure. So this was a fun squad, and like you said, I hope they run it back because I got him right here. I got Brad the Duck, and I showed him on broadcast, and I will forever, ever cherish him as long as the Ducky Getters are playing. So never gonna let him go. Never gonna let the Ducky Getters go, and hopefully they run it back for OQ too.
Let's do money matches. Let's talk a little bit about Super Weeks have now concluded here. 2 weeks of money matches. I mean, I felt like what we had like the little dollar emoji next to the matches on the schedule, and
Yeah.
the like transition screens look different. Other than that, I feel like there was not really much publicity to be had about these money matches. I
Mm-hmm.
think the fact that the YouTube channel continues to like barely be utilized at all certainly didn't help that. Um, didn't seem like anybody made any like unique promo to show on LCS, nor was there any LCS to show that promo on, even if they had. So, I mean, I don't know. Not like good to give some more money into the scene, especially when the players are being paid so little the way they are now. But
McChickens, basically. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, yeah, it really feels like swing and a miss on the money matches. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think they really did
I
much to
agree.
change how a spectator views the match.
I think the big thing for the money matches, and I said this when it was initially announced, we had a big 4-person episode with Slayer and TDS and you and I said that while the money matches are like a cool way to add like dimensionality to the NACL and be like, oh, they also have this. It doesn't really do much to reel someone in interest, right? Like if I'm watching as a consumer and as a watcher, I don't really care to watch a money match over just a regular match, right? Like that doesn't make a difference to me as a person who's consuming the content that I'm being given. And so that's the disappointing part. I felt like there should have been a little bit more incentive and a little bit more nuance to the money matches that gets people's butts to the actual stream. But there wasn't, and so yeah, I agree with you. A hit and a miss, or a swing and a miss rather. Um, the thing that I was kind of why I also kind of feel like it wasn't as hyped was because you've got these money matches and you've got this idea, but the thing is, the money itself isn't, you know, that much. And I was really hoping that if the money were to go to anything, it would go to orgs trying to branch out more in terms of like content or getting themselves out, because this to me is the time, because this is the last split in the NACL where you can get first place, you can win the tournament, and you won't get promoted, right? Because promotion relegation is coming. This is the last time this is not going to happen. So it's incredibly important for especially these top tier orgs who are winning these matches, who are getting this money, to try and get themselves out there, to use that money to try and garner fandom. Because if you are a team that's potentially going to promote into the LCS next year, or the Americas, whatever you want to call it, and you don't have any content, you don't garner any interest, then you're not only not going to have any interest, but you're not going to have any money, because we are in esports, and you aren't going to have any fans. So it kind of feels like this money isn't going to anything productive, even when it is being won. So it's not interesting to watch the money matches as a consumer, and that money itself is not enough to give the players time to or a chance to branch out and make something for themselves. And the orgs aren't going to get it either. So they also can't branch out and make anything for their brand either. So it just kind of feels like this money is void, in my opinion. Like it's cool, but it doesn't really feel like $500,000 to teams that went 2-0 is enough to do anything significant for the players or organizations.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, it would be $500,000 per player if you went 2-0, because I think it was $12.50 per game was the pool. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine to throw the players a bone here and there. Like, I don't know that it necessarily all needs to be like developmental money, but I do agree. Like, and I feel like it's an error on a few hands. Like, I think Blue Otter and Supernova got into a lot of trash talk and stuff on Twitter. Like,
which was awesome.
I think that was kind of the idea, and they like leaned into it a little bit. I feel like they could have done all that without the like. Also, like, you know, some of them going a little bit far with it too. By the way, but that's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I know what you're
That's fun.
to.
I'm not gonna listen. Beggars can't be choosers. So I'm not gonna be overly critical about it. Well, I feel like they could have done that stuff with or without the money matches, though. So it's like kind of just an excuse to do it more than anything. And I don't know if that nudge is necessarily required. And yeah, I mean, like I don't know. I kind of question the decision making of the league a little bit too, to just say like, you know what, we're just gonna throw. You know, it's cool to throw that kind of money around and give more investment into the league in any form. But I do feel like, you know, just saying like, oh, we're going to staple money to the games, do, you know, virtually nothing else other than add some dollar emojis to the schedule and, you know, trust that the orgs are going to trash talk and pick up the slack. I don't know. Feels like a little bit overly presumptuous, a little bit optimistic, one might say.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, if the alternative is just, you know, I don't know if I would have noticed the difference if they had just. So what is it? It's 10 total money matches, $12.50 each, so that's $12,500. So I mean, if you just gave every team $12.50 more in their yearly or their split stipend, would we even have like really noticed a difference? I don't know necessarily, but I think it's fine. It's not hurting anybody. I just don't think it's like. You know, they definitely made a big case that this was like a big development for the scene. This and the YouTube channel both had cases made for them like they were big developments to the NACL, like on par with like Brandon Sanderson and that's his name, right?
Yep.
All right, I'm learning. On par with like Brandon Sanderson and Starforge joining the league, and they do not think it has played out that way. I mean, the bright side is, you know, money matches could never be the biggest failure of these changes because the YouTube channel has one video on it since they made that announcement, and it's got like 30 views because it didn't come out until 5 weeks into the season. So
they also just haven't promoted it. Like the NACL YouTube channel has seen no exposure, no people don't even know it exists. Like it's one of those things where it's almost like a case with like Dig, where Dig doesn't promote their stuff, and then when you actually do type in Dig, you get a suicide prevention number, which is just insane.
Which is like it's hilarious, by the way. Like
that's so tragic.
I do like. I mean, the hilarious meme is they're like, "Oh no, we got a Dig fan there. This guy needs help." But yeah,
I mean, they're probably doing a little bit better now. I think you know, a little bit of tier 1 talk. Dig is actually doing pretty well. I'm a bit of a Dig fan this split. But yeah, I think the YouTube channel is definitely not working out the way they hoped, and I also don't think the money matches were promoted in a way that made them super exciting. Now, I don't want them to drop money matches because, like you said, I think that this only can help, right? Like giving extra money to players is nice. At the end of the day, it's good for the players and it gives them an incentive to play. So I don't want them to just drop it despite the criticism we're giving. But what I would have them do is just try to give a little bit more of a reason for people to watch and not just for players to play, because players are going to play no matter what. The extra money is just a little bit of an extra, oh, hey, you also get this. For consumers, though, and people who are watching, we don't get that extra little bonus. And what I really don't want them to do is to go on to the statistics and be like, oh yeah, these weeks for money matches saw an increase in viewership, because they probably did, because guess what? LCS wasn't on. So no one's watching LCS. And so where did all those extra eyes go to? They'll go to the NACL, and conveniently we've got money matches. So I don't want the NACL to think that the money matches were a big thing for viewership, when I'm sure it helped a little bit, but I do feel like that stat is going to be inflated because the LCS wasn't doing anything during the time these were going on. So I want them to be a little bit realistic with this and just try to make some changes for next time, because I do think some changes could be nice going forward, because this was an experiment and I do think it was a good intentioned one at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the big change is like, I don't know, man. You got to they got to use this YouTube channel. Like the YouTube algorithm offers you so much more than the Twitch algorithm in your ability to like get discovered and get stuff recommended. Like the Twitch algorithm might as well not even exist. Like you need to know what you're looking for on Twitch to even have a dream of finding it. But you know, on YouTube, like people I've never spoken to get recommended this show and watch this show allegedly. You know, at least if my YouTube studio statistics are to be believed, you know, people find this show through Twitter and they find this show through YouTube algorithm stuff. So I mean, surely, you know, with the social media managers and stuff at Riot, surely, you know, we can get some good tags on there. We can put some, you know, surely we could do something, right? We could upload some shorts, you know. Shorts are huge for the algorithm these days.
Yeah,
like,
that would help actually.
Yeah,
for sure.
like I don't know, dude. It should be so easy to,
I mean,
like,
it's
get
even like possible with the stuff that they're making, because like, you know, I was just talking about content for teams and players. The NACL is doing a really good job at that, right? Like between games, they'll show like little snippets of like players being people. And I feel like that's something that's much needed for these people to take the next step, because I've said this multiple times. Being good at League of Legends is not the only thing that'll get you to tier 1 if you're a tier 2 player. You have to have other facets of marketability if you're hoping to make it. And I'm glad that the NACL is taking steps to give those players that opportunity. Make shorts of those. Make shorts of the players being people and having them do those content bits that you have between games. That seems like a super easy change that I would do myself if you hired me to do it. I would be like, okay, I will screen record this, put it on a short, boom, people can watch it, and it's a meta way to get people's eyes on your product. So yeah, I agree with you. I feel like shorts would be a really good way to do it. I feel like the continued content bits that they do between games is really good, but I do think that, like you said, the YouTube channel makes it hard for you to even view those things. So
yeah,
they kind of have to
drop the
up.
VODs, drop the post-match interviews. Like the only thing they've uploaded since creating this channel has been the Toasty versus Shochi bot game that they did, and that has 31 views right now. By the way, this is getting outwatched by the Salt Mine guys. I mean, come on, like we really got to be able to step that up a little bit here, not to degrade ourselves further, but come on, guys, like you gotta. Here, wait. I'm gonna see. Is there even a description on this video? Okay, there is. There's a whole description. They've got hashtags. They are doing the bare minimum, but the algorithm also wants you to upload more frequently and on a regular schedule. So you gotta build that momentum. You gotta get the shorts in there. You gotta do a little bit more. You can't just drop one video and go viral anymore. It's not 2008.
You can't be a one-hit wonder here. For that, no, definitely not.
You can't record your kid after dental surgery and go on Ellen anymore. You need to get a little bit. You need to feed YouTube a little bit more.
That was a wild era where you could like get like one big hit on like Facebook or like Vine and then be invited to like a talk. I mean, we did recently. We've had that a couple of times with like TikTok. TikTok
like
stuff,
you do that. you know what? NACL should get a TikTok too. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah, they should. I mean, hey man, you got to pull out all the stops. I feel like at this point, like I feel like it definitely there needs to be more effort in trying to like spread the gospel of NACL in a way, spread the salt of NACL if you want to call it that, because it really feels like they aren't promoting it as much as they should. And that's sad because I think the NACL has been really interesting this split. I think there's a ton of players that everyone is getting behind for those who are watching. And it's going to become more important next year, right? Like actually watching the NACL and keeping up with that side of the scene, this side of the scene, will directly connect you to tier one. So you're probably going to want to get a head start on it, and it just kind of feels like Riot and everyone involved is making it difficult to actually go to where you want to go and see what you want to see, because like even taking notes for this episode, like I can't even watch the match VODs. I have to go to the stream and I have to like click around 2x speed it and like micromanage the stream. Like it really kind of is.
yeah. That's the
It
weird
kind of
thing.
is
I mean,
annoying.
there's nothing Riot can do about this, but the replayer for YouTube streams is like really hard to skip through. It like I skip ahead
Mhm.
5 seconds and it sits there and it buffers for 6 seconds,
Yep.
and it's like yeah. So I actually had to go back to Twitch VODs, even though I prefer YouTube. As like
Mhm.
if I'm gonna be scrubbing through a VOD, I want to be using YouTube, but I guess something in YouTube just breaks when you hit past the 4 hour mark on video length. So. I don't know. I had to go back to Twitch, man. I had to give up. It took too long.
It is also kind of funny because when I was scrolling through week 5, which is what we'll be talking about this week for everyone wondering, I go on to week 5. What was it? Day 2. I click on the middle of the VOD, and we are in game 2 between Winthrop and Fear.
Oh yeah,
Fear
they
X
just missed
Starforge.
like half the
They
YouTube streams just
missed.
missing for one of the days.
Yes, half the YouTube stream is literally missing from the YouTube VOD, which is unholy. Like, I feel like that is like proof that they just
There's like one intern in charge of this YouTube channel, man. I don't understand.
like
It's like
like like literally caught in 4K that you cut half of the stream on the YouTube video. So I also had to go to Twitch to find that first game between Winthrop and Fear. And obviously it's only one game, so it's not the biggest deal. But it's like you figured they would have caught that
well, I mean,
if, like you said, there were actually people working
well,
on
and here's what
uploading
does
those.
matter, dude, because I mean, they've replaced like they aren't uploading the VODs anywhere. Like the LoL Esports
Mhm.
VODs are nowhere to be found. So like they've
Yeah.
replaced the game by game VOD repository that they have had historically. Hang on, wait, like let me search really quick LoL Esports VODs. You go to the official LoL Esports VODs and highlights channel. Okay, yeah, they are not putting NACL on this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've stopped uploading NACL to the official LoL Esports VODs and highlights channel. Instead, I guess these stream VODs are all we get. So like now half those games are missing.
Yep.
When the Twitch VODs expire, those games are just gone now.
They're
Like,
just gone. So it's like it's really it really is unfortunate, and I wish, and like you said, this was a thing they were propping up with the LoL esports like updates for the summer, and they haven't delivered on that. And obviously it's only one thing. Like I think overall the NACL has been doing fine this summer so far, but like this is a thing that I think is really important, because you look at like any Twitch streamer and they will like even like what Twitch streamer do we want to look at? Like any league streamer, you look at them, you can look at Dantes, and he'll have like 2,000 average viewers. You look at one of his YouTube videos and those things can pull in potentially millions, right? So that just emphasizes how important VODs are and like highlights are, and like being able to upload your stuff to other things other than Twitch VODs, because not everyone has time to watch the full stream. Some people need to just see the action and tune out because, you know, potentially they're busy. So it really is important that you get the highlights in. It really is important that you make sure your YouTube is running smoothly, because if you're not able to do that, then you're essentially forcing people to skip around a 3 to 7 hour long VOD, just trying to find the results, which is never fun, never cool. People don't like that. I don't like that, and I love the NACL. So it's important that they figure that out and fix that. And I hope that I don't want to say negativity, but our criticism doesn't go unanswered, because this is like something that we're doing and something we're saying because we want it to succeed, right? Not because we're hate watchers or anything
Well,
like
and
that.
it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like they should be just gimmies, right? Like this should be free.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he can, put one person on this and they could do it. Um, yeah, I don't
I'll
know.
do it.
Like the cost benefit here is way out of whack. You should very easily be able to reap the reward in the positive sense, right? You can, like the benefits you get so many benefits for very little investment. So I don't know. I hope to see. I hope something just like fell through, right? I hope there's like, some kind of like, oh, I thought you're not doing the YouTube channel. I thought you were doing the YouTube channel. It's like,
Oh,
hopefully,
wouldn't that be funny?
I
That
hope
would be
so,
hilarious.
dude. Or I hope like there was one person who had it and like they got hit by a bus and then like just something happened, right? Some kind of emergency, like where there was something more planned for. Clearly, there was something more planned for this, right?
Like, hey
like,
man, the storms have been hitting the U.S.
I
like
know,
nobody's
like
business.
something
Like it's been
like
raining
a
every day
fault
where I
line
live.
opened up and swallowed the YouTube editor. Like there's got to
Yeah.
be something that explains this, because this couldn't have been the plan, right? There's no way
Yeah.
you as like Whooply like get on a video and are like, and we have a brand new YouTube channel, go check it out, and then like you don't upload a video for 5 weeks. There's just no way
Yeah.
that's like that was the plan. Like there must have been something else that people thought was going to happen that didn't happen. So hopefully it happens, and
Yeah,
things are
it
better
certainly,
in the future.
obviously I'm hoping that it is like miscommunication. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's very easy to do, right? Like you screen record the video, you upload it to YouTube, boom, very easy. Like I
You
just
don't
did
even
that
need
today
to
with
do
one of my
that. I
solo
mean,
queue VODs.
like you could just download the Twitch VODs, like just Twitch leech it,
Yep. Yep. So it is easy. I agree. I do at the end of the day, I hope it is like miscommunication. And even if it isn't miscommunication, I do hope that they realize eventually that it is like a thing that needs to remain consistent. And I'm hopeful that it'll fix itself in the future, regardless of what is happening in the present. I'm very optimistic about the people behind this product, and I know they're very smart. So I'm hoping that it'll fix itself when the time comes.
Yep. That is the hope. But we're half an hour in. Let's talk about the games from this past week a little bit. Let's get into, so first subject I want to talk about is FlyQuest, because FlyQuest are our consensus #1 team coming into the split, have a rough week #5. And I mean it's a tough schedule. They played Fierce Starforge and Disguised. Not the hardest schedule imaginable. There could have been a Dragon Steel or a Team Liquid in there. Fierce Starforge is pretty tough, who they actually beat in 3, looking shaky the whole while. And then there is Disguised, who they do not beat, and they also look shaky the whole while. I mean, to me, it just feels like at least some of these higher echelon teams, and I am very tentative to even call Disguised that, have figured out that you can just kind of rush top lane now and bully Surdy all game, and you're probably good for a kill or two, if in at least the way he's playing a lot of these lanes lately. And it feels like the rest of the team has struggled to pick up the slack at least 100% of the time. I don't know. Yeah, what are your thoughts, Quax?
So I agree with you. I think Surdy being focused is definitely something teams have caught on. I think they're just trying to counteract how Surdy normally likes to play lane. Like, I think Surdy is a player who loves to tiptoe around danger in the lane. He loves to be more aggressive, and he loves to really subjugate his opponent out of the lane. And that results in him usually either being the victim of a dive, or him usually being the one pushing in too far and being punished. Because even in the game that we saw, I forget which one it was, but there was one where Shaden pathed up towards Surdy on Karthus and immediately went down to the bot crab. And then there's a Nidalee on the enemy team with like a Cassante or a Renekton or something like that, and they just kill Surdy. Like, there was no protection there whatsoever, and Surdy basically just got locked out of lane at that point. Was
Yeah,
forced
that
to
was
expend
game
the
one
DP.
versus Fear, right? Is
Yep,
Surdy's on
I
the
think so.
Renekton, Shaden's on the Karthus. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
I think that was their worst game all week too. Like
Yes, by
Fear
far.
are just full sending on every objective, and Fly
Hmm.
just like have no
Can't
idea what to do. They're
react.
like that was the worst one to me by a lot. I feel like I have not
Hmm.
seen. I don't think I've ever seen this year's FlyQuest roster like look like they have no idea what to do as they're just
Hmm.
getting snowballed on. And part of that's like good execution by Fear Starforge, right? Like I
Yeah.
think they're very good at XU's very good at using the Nidalee to its full potential once it starts snowballing. Philip has some really sick Gragas plays in that game. I don't want to
Hmm.
underscore what they did or disregard what they did. But yeah, I mean, wow, does
It was
Fly
rough.
are just
It was a
reeling the
rough
whole way.
game.
They cannot get themselves back into it.
I definitely feel like this is a team that I want to kind of I want to give them the benefit of the doubt in a way, because this is a team that, while I agree they had a rough week and they definitely looked the shakiest this week than they have in previous, I do feel like this is one of those rosters that always has the ability to turn it on when they need to. Like when FlyQuest need to get into playoffs, or when it's like playoffs time, saying like, oh, we have to win these if we want to lock playoffs. I feel like they can turn it on. So I definitely don't think this is a squad that's just gonna like have like a steady decline. I certainly feel like this is a squad full of 5 players that are super duper talented. Um, and can very easily turn it back on. But yeah, this week I think the matches were rough, and I also do think that teams started to expose some of the weaknesses in there, namely the fact that like FlyQuest are very methodical around objectives, and like you said, Fear were just like, you know what? Let's just rush these guys on every dragon and every herald and just YOLO it, because Fly like to kind of trap their opponents when it comes to these objectives, like trap them in a pit or kind of box them in and then close the jaws around them. Fear were having none of that, and they just cut a path right through it. They stuck a knife in those jaws, and it really didn't feel like FlyQuest had an answer. So it certainly was. It certainly is like a bad week for them, because they did lose both their matches. But I am gonna be honest.
They won the Starforge match.
Well, yeah, but I am
They
not
lost games, though.
I'm not too worried about them at the end of the day. Like I do think that this is a roster that will make playoffs no matter how, rough they might have it this week. Because I mean, I think all their players are really good.
I agree. The only other thing I'd say there is Bradley feels like he's playing like he's still in OQs. He's like just like mega hardcore, like super aggressive, trying to solo carry the game, flashing in, trying to go for scat of the weeks on Syndra and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it is her not working out the best. I think the pick that he has looked the best on by a lot has been the LeBlanc.
I was about to say that as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic that you say that, because I felt like the LeBlanc was a signature pick of his in OQs, right?
Yeah,
Like he would bust that out when no other mid laner was really playing LB. He would pull it out and he would crush everybody. And I do think it's his best. But like, this is a meta where I think LeBlanc is not as strong as other top tier mids. Like, we're still in the Corki, Hui, Tristana dominated mid lane, and I do think LeBlanc has trouble against, I want to say 2 of those 3. I think Corki is a little bit more forgiving for LeBlanc than Hui, who can just kind of outrange her and stay away from her combos, and Tristana, who can simply W to where she's gonna go back on her distortion and all in her, and LeBlanc is like, whoa, I did not intend for this trade to be this bloody. I was just hoping to hit you a couple of times. But yeah, I think his aggression that he showed in OQs is definitely getting punished more in the NACL. And I don't want to say it's having like any lasting impact on their games, but I do feel like it is a facet that's kind of closing for FlyQuest to play around, because Bradley was the biggest carry on CCG, and on FlyQuest it kind of feels like he's around, but they still love to play around Shaden and Sajet in particular, whereas Bradley is more used to being played around, but that's not really how FlyQuest like to play. They aren't like they're used to Quad just kind of blowing everybody out of the water. Bradley's not quad, so it does kind of feel like there is something missing there that they had in spring, obviously.
Yeah, I certainly agree there. So, I mean, eyes on FlyQuest and how they're going to adapt as they get into the back half of the season. They do have some easier matchups, to say the least,
Yes,
coming
yes, they
in
do.
towards the last couple of weeks here. They get to play. They haven't played AoE yet. They haven't played Blue Outer yet. They haven't played CCG yet. And that's that thing about the single round robin schedule that you got to keep in mind is that teams can have deflated records versus what you would expect to see from them because of what order they end up playing their matches in. So I think the odds that FlyQuest ends with 6 or 7 wins are still very, very high.
Yep.
And, that will put them in the top half seeds playing against in playoffs, right? They'll be top 4 off that probably. And then like teams like Disguised and Fear, who are at 4-2, may end up dropping down a little bit more. Like Fear has yet to play Dragonsteel or Team Liquid. Disguised has yet to play Dragonsteel or Supernova. Like there's room for these teams to maybe end 5-4, even though they're above FlyQuest right now. I have some confidence in Supernova as well against all these teams. Like I could see the other half of that coin, right, is FlyQuest hasn't played Supernova either, and if they continue to exhibit these same weaknesses that Disguised and Fear took
that
advantage
would be
of,
worrying.
I could see them losing to Supernova. I really could.
Yeah, that would be really worrying. I think Supernova is good, and they've shown some real promise. In particular, I think that Toasty, we kind of had like a this or that discussion with Toasty where it's like it was a very black and white viewpoint from all of us when we initially talked about the rosters. I think Toasty has exhibited some really good laning in this split in particular. And I think if he is a match for Bradley and he can really punish that aggression that we mentioned from Bradley, then and Toasty can come out on top, then I can actually see Supernova potentially winning this, because I do feel like they also kind of have that YOLO mentality that Fear showed in their series, where it's like just bum rush them. Because I mean, you got Kenvi, right? Kenvi is the biggest IDGF, GAF player in the jungle, maybe besides like Spica, or not Spica, Shaden. And man, he loves to show it, right? Like I'm a really big fan of Kenvi, and I think if Toasty and Kenvi can come out on top, then we could very well see them be victorious in that series. And that would be, yeah, like you said, really, really worrying for FlyQuest, because to me there's a fine line between like the top 4 teams and then everyone else. And I think Supernova is in the everyone else category right now, and FlyQuest is not. And if this series is not going to go the way of FlyQuest, then I think it really throws their chances for a loop.
I agree. The other team that's kind of outside looking in is Disguised. They have a 2-0 week. I don't know that I'm sold on FlyQuest's comeback. I think Yukino and Poom both have very good weeks. I think they're working well together, which is reassuring for their ability to, not be a bad team. And they're now 4-2, which I think, obviously mathematically only Dragonsteel have locked in, but I think having 4 wins makes it very unlikely that you end bottom 2. So, again, Disguised Toast can wipe his brow and know that he'll have an NACL team next split again. Good for him. But I don't know that I consider this team like a real contender, even though they are tied for second right now. I am still not seeing the kind of consistency. Their win rate is 53%, even though they are top 2 right now. Their game win rate is 53%. They have 1 more game win than game loss. They've dropped a lot of games to weaker teams, despite the fact that they were able to come out on top of FlyQuest this week. I don't know. I'm a doubter.
Yeah, I am not. I'm actually on the other coin. I'm a believer. I actually really like the Disguise roster. But I do agree with you. I think this team is omega inconsistent with how they play. Yes. I think they can drop games to teams they should beat, and they can beat teams that they can pull out wins to teams that they should lose to, as we saw from their series against FlyQuest. And I will say, we before this episode started, heavily criticized FlyQuest's draft in Game 3, which was pretty bad.
Yeah, they just have no way to get fights started. Like, they're just completely zoned. Their comp in that game
was
is...
Twisted Fate, it was Viego, it was LeBlanc, it was Kaisa, and it was Poppy.
Yeah.
Now, you could be, saying to yourself, well, that's a pick comp, right? That's pretty good. But you fail to recognize that DSG had a Wind Wall with Yasuo in the top lane. They had a Bard. They had 3 teleports because they had ZD carry, and they had Wukong clone. So they have multiple ways to either disengage from that pick or immediately react to that pick by instantly teleporting to save their teammate that got caught out, right? So,
Yeah.
and it really felt like a bad draft at the end of the day. But I do think that Disguised did play out that game well. Like you said, in particular, Poom had a really good series. I think Yukino also had a really good series. I think that this squad is the definition of hands with not a ton of brain. Like, I think they have shown some really insane plays. Like, in particular, Tenacity on the Renekton, basically going God mode on the Baron, was a play that I feel like only Tenacity could go for, or only would go for, and he made it work. But like, that's an example
lose that game,
of how,
but yeah, fair.
yeah, like that's an example of how Disguise play, right? Like, they go in for the YOLO plays, they go in for the flips. Sometimes they come out on top, sometimes they don't. It's a fun team to watch, but it is really inconsistent. So I think if they can clean up house a little bit with that inconsistency, this team, when they look good, is actually really good. And I think if they can continue that form, I can very easily see them maintaining like a top 4 spot.
I could see that.
So I'm a believer. I'm a believer for this one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I do think, Yukino's play on the plants, the Maokai and the Zyra, are both tremendous.
Yeah, he's a botanist.
He definitely has the ability to like take over a game. I don't know. I want to see how teams adapt to what FlyQuest showed this week. I am not sold. I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a hater from last split, but I feel like I'm still seeing all the same weaknesses from last split. Tomo obviously being an additional threat that they didn't have with Manui, being the big difference maker. But I don't know. I don't think that I have this team like competing with the Dragonsteel, Fear, FlyQuest. I think I have TLC up there too, and I want Supernova to be up there. I want them up there. So I think I still have Disguised 6th, which is where I had them at the start of the season. So
yeah, I am also hoping that Disguised, because I'm going to go back to this. Not only is their content good, but their players are hella funny. Like, Tenacity is like the biggest. I don't know, man. He's like the big. He gives off like Bay Life vibes. Like, the like Reginald vibes that everyone complimented him for. Like the YOLO Bay Life vibes. That's what I picture with Tenacity. I don't know. I feel like he is a really fun content machine. I think Yukino is also hilarious. Anytime I've watched his streams, I laugh. So this is a squad that I really want to see get some content around them, because they've literally got a streamer as their owner. So they very well can do content. I just think they need to do it. And if they can continue their good results and they have good content, then this is a team that it would be very hard not to root for, because I can see this team being not only really good, but really fun to watch in things other than just their games. Because if Blue Water can do it, like Blue Water have got some really fun players. I think Disguised are kind of have that bro mentality that they have with their players as well, and it could be a really fun squad. So, Disguised Toast, please put out some content for us to watch. You're a streamer, you can do it. I believe in you. You live in LA.
Yeah. I mean, I think the difference with Disguised Toast is I do get the sense, and I could be way off base here, but I get the sense that he's like just kind of run. Like, I feel like the esports team is like a hobby for him. I feel like he doesn't like care a ton if it's like, if it can actually turn things back around and be profitable. But I agree. I mean, it couldn't hurt. It would be nice to see them do, I think, a little bit more, get a little bit more involved in the scene. And he does tweet, of course, about how much money he's burning. It would be nice to
Yeah,
maybe
like,
burn a little less, I'm sure.
yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I don't know. Everything about this team is like a meme in my mind. Like everything from their jerseys to their roster announcements being those little stick figures to their players being Tenacity, Young, and Yukino, to the fact that their color scheme is literally just like a saturated beige, which no other team in probably the entire world has. Like, this team has got so much going for them in content and in potential results that it's almost a little frustrating to see them not do more, because I want to see them succeed at the end of the day. Like, I really think that this squad is cool. Like, I back this squad 100%.
That's
And
fair.
and basically everything that they've got going for them. They just need to, I feel, commit a little bit more, and I think they could really pull some eyes.
Yeah. Let's talk about a squad that's probably running out of backers, AOE, and their
Mhm.
new roster this week. So they debut Cozy up in the top lane. He wins a game on a Kali, which is
Yep.
what you bring in Cozy to do. So
Yep.
hats off to Cozy. I mean, if he doesn't get to do anything else, he got to play a Kali in NACL and he got the dub.
Yep.
Didn't win the series, of course. Still ended up dropping to CCG, which to me, I mean, probably cements their season as ending in
Yeah.
last. I mean,
Yeah.
they get
Yeah.
to play Dragon Steel, FlyQuest, and Supernova now as their back three. I think they're going 0-9, boys.
And yeah, I mean, that is certainly rough. I mean, this is a squad. I feel like, you know, I don't want to draw too much attention to this, but obviously this squad wasn't formed ahead of time, right? This was a squad that was very much so like put together at the last moment with some of the players. And so they didn't have their shit together right out of the gate. Um, and it kind of shows. I am happy though that they seem a little bit more cohesive with I feel like there is more potential with Cozy and Onat on the squad.
Yeah.
And in particular, I kind of feel bad for Onat, because I feel like he had a tweet initially where it was like, I didn't get a team and I thought I should have got a team, and now he has a team, but this is a team that, like you said, is scheduled to go 0-9, and I feel like he's a really talented player in particular. So I don't know. I don't think it's really the fault of the players, and I just kind of hope that the scene recognizes that. And for the players themselves, a message to them is just try your best and try to have fun, because at the end of the day, I think that this squad has some cool personalities and some interesting stuff that they could show.
I mean, I will say there's been plenty of flame thrown NXI's way already, but I mean,
I mean,
we've
it's the jungler life, dude. I don't.
he's had a couple of rounds of it on multiple positions on multiple rosters now. I mean, I don't know why you don't put in Rosethorn, right? Like I think
Yeah, I
Rosethorn should be in right now. I am not on the NXI train any longer. I wasn't really on the NXI over Rosethorn train initially, and I have not been converted. I do think like he's probably like the MVP in that one game they win this week on the brand, but
yeah.
that's brand gameplay,
Yeah, no,
baby. I don't
he had
know.
a
I
good
think it's hard
brand.
to win a brand game and not be the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, you build two burn items and you deal the most damage, so there you win any argument. According to every solo queue player ever who just says check the damage charts, bro. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like even if you sub in Rosethorn, it doesn't fix the issues, because I don't think the issues are necessarily in game. At least not as much in game as out of game. Because, like I said, I feel like this roster definitely suffered from not a ton of time to mesh before the NACL actually happened. Like, we were literally begging for the rosters to get released for some of these teams before the season
This
started,
team was,
and
and I
one of
mean,
them was AOE.
yeah, and I mean, enough people other than us have said it in public now and on posts. It's been posted elsewhere by multiple parties now that I don't feel bad saying it. Like I was hearing up until the last moment that this roster was going to have Cat Evolved on it,
Yep.
and not Cupic. So it seems like something kind of fell through there. So yeah, at the very least, like there was some sort of last minute pivot involved in the creation of this roster. Did not work out. I guess so here's the question that's the only question that matters, right? Because they're gonna probably go 0-9. The real question is, can this team beat Dragoon's Goons?
Mhm. I guess my next question would be like, do we think what is the other squad that we think will probably have to fight for promotion at this point? Because we are getting down
I
there.
think
I
it'll
think
be
it is kind of like
CCG. I think Blue
an
Otter
early
is better.
question.
The fact that Blue Otter lost that head to head is gonna make it rough for them. So I think
Hmm.
they're gonna have to like beat out DSG or something.
Yeah.
Um, so assuming that they can, I think it could be Blue Otter. I think Blue Otter could beat out CCG.
Yeah.
The odds probably lean towards it being Blue Otter at this point, though, which is unfortunate. I think Blue Otter would be able to defend their spot,
I
though.
I I actually think CCG are more likely to have to go into the promotion tournament simply because I think Blue Water. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, like, Blue Otter would have to win another series for that to happen.
Yeah.
And they play
Yes.
DSG, FlyQuest, and Team Liquid.
I feel like people are kind of overrating Team Liquid. I do think Blue Water. Obviously, it's probably not likely, but I do think Blue Water have a chance to beat the other blue team, potentially. But
Interesting.
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
they're more likely to beat DSG, but I
strength of
hope for it.
schedule.
I just think
Yeah.
it's probably like more unlikely than not that they do pick up another win.
Hmm. I do. All right. So I guess you one thing you really wanted to talk about was if we're gonna continue with some of the NACL teams, you wanted to talk about Winthrop.
I do. I think
So
we could
you
round things out on that a little bit because it is the last game of the week. So this is kind of a point I wanted to make. Thank you for reminding me of this before we close out for the night. So Winthrop versus um,
Blue Water.
Blue Otter, game 2, last game of the week, last game of the Super Week. Everybody's kind of tuning out. It's been it's been it's been a long week. There's been a lot of games.
Yep.
Everybody's kind of done. People are finishing up. They're tuning out.
Hmm. Yep.
Aaron Zeri gets 3 kills at level 1.
Yep. Yep.
Then they try to dive him bot and get the shutdown back. They do kill him, but he gets a double kill back in turn. So Aaron Zeri has 5 kills in 5 minutes. And I think a lot of the world sees that and just says, okay, game's over. We're done. This game's a footnote. And it is a little bit. I do think
Yeah.
the game
I
is
mean,
over at that point.
yeah.
But what I think gets missed is Denethor has a little bit of a breakout game too. Like
6-0 by 18 minutes as a top
his
laner
well, and
is crazy.
it is not him just standing there frontlining for the hyperfed Aaron Zeri that gets him that scoreline either. He kind of has to play it organically, right? He gets a couple of assists at the level 1, but they're split a bunch of ways, right? It's not a substantial amount of gold. It's not like he comes into lane with an extra item. I'm pretty sure. If he does come into lane with an extra item, disregard what I said, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't. So he's like pretty much even keel up there, and he has a 1v2 double kill up against Quacker and Rovex.
And Rovex.
Yeah,
Yep.
he plays around Vision really well, has like a camp in the long brush around mid lane, and like takes a 1v3 where he picks up a kill and gets out alive. So he's like taking these 1v multiple fights and doing really well. Like looking more like the kind of ACL champion best player in tier 3 Denethor that I really wanted to see in the NACL.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And
it's the last game of the week, and I mean, I do have to call this out against an absolutely mentally shattered Blue Otter team because this team just gave 5 kills to Zahari in 5 minutes. So
I mean, that would mental boom anyone.
yeah,
Like I don't even blame Blue Water for like
exactly. So
mentally
you
checking
kind of
out.
have to factor
It's the
that
last
in.
game, like,
And it's
like
so it's
yeah.
hard to say. It's like what is a good read? It's hard to call out like what is a good read from Denethor that he could outplay Blue Otter with on any given day, and what is Blue Otter playing sloppy because they know this game is already over. So that's something
Yeah.
that's always going to be very impossible to determine. So I mean, I'm not gonna I'm not going to take my Denethor stocks to the bank off of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to call it out. I don't know. If Denethor starts doing much better and Winthrop starts picking up more series and, in the coming weeks we start to see a little bit more out of him in the top lane, I want to look back on this moment and be like, I think everything kind of seemed to click for Denethor in that
Yeah.
Blue Otter series. I think his Renekton game was very good as well. The score line is far less impressive, but I think he does a very good job of abusing his Renekton power spike to buy space in fights and give Winthrop that angle to come back the way that they do in game number 1. So I really like what we saw at Denethor this week. That's just what I want to call it. I want to call this I'm going to tentatively call this a breakout series, and let's see how he does for the rest of the split.
I would honestly take it a step further and say this was a really breakout series for Winthrop as like a whole, because one complaint that we had, even when it was announced that this would be kind of a slew-woo hybrid, was like Denethor is a carry that's played to an unconventional manner where they just let him do his thing. I felt like Denethor played much like how other top laners play, but he just did it better, right? Like, he was a weak side machine. He allowed Aaron to be the focus, and that's exactly what was needed of him, right? Like, he was a secondary carry in a way, but he kind of did it so well that you could almost call him the primary carry in certain aspects of it. And I agree with you with Blue Water. Like, this is a game where, like you said, last game of the week, everyone's tired, everyone's checked out. You have to deal with a Zeri that's 5 and has 5 kills and has a Taric and a Morgana, and you have Vi. So you're never gonna kill this guy. If you get to him, you simply pop like a balloon. And now on top of it, there's a Cassante that has 3 kills. And yeah, this was a game that was over from minute 1. And it certainly was very well played by Winthrop, but I think if they can continue this trend, then they could prove everybody wrong, because I think this squad actually looks really good, especially Aaron looks so good whenever I watch him. Like, on the Zeri, he played really well, but on other champions, he's also been performing super highly. So I actually hope that this team makes it far, and so far their record is 3-3. So we didn't predict them to be super high, and they're already kind of exceeding expectations. So that's really cool to see, and I hope they continue to do so, because they've been playing better and better as the weeks have gone by.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Quax. I had them 7th. I had them highest of anybody here.
You did actually.
They are in 7th,
I remember
right?
you
They
were
are
the
in
one
7th
believer.
right now. I'm actually the standings right now are actually almost exactly my preseason power rankings. I don't know that they're going to stay this way. I don't want to jinx it. Dragonsteel and Disguised are both fucking it up a little bit. But apart from Dragonsteel and Disguised, I am pretty on point right now. So let's hope it stays that way, and I can have some bragging rights at the end of the split.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna defend myself a little bit on my power rankings of Winthrop, and I'm glad Summer's not here. Because I would have to answer to her. But I'm gonna plead ignorance a little bit. This is a squad that when they were initially announced, everyone had them last place, and then we moved them slightly. Some of us more than others.
I was gonna
Gordo,
say TDS
right?
kept them last.
Well, yeah, TDS kept them last. He's got no excuse. But my excuse is that I was not sure how well this team would function because of how late in the game they were put together, right? And we've already seen how, timing can kind of mess with the team's standings. AoE, for example, right, are not doing super well, and they were also put together at the last second, similar to Winthrop. So I plead ignorance, and I ask my lawyer, because he'll tell you the same thing. But yeah, in all honesty, I'm impressed with how Winthrop have been playing, especially this week. I thought they were doing really, really well. Not even just that last game. And I hope they continue. Even though they are playing as harder opponents, I think that this is a fun squad. And like you said, I think Denethor has a lot of potential, and I just hope that he gets that unlocked. I'm really excited to see him go against Zamudo, because I think Zamudo has kind of been the new kid on the block he's kind of like that one guy who in movies moves from like a town in the middle of like bumfuck nowhere, comes in, plays like basketball and like tries out for the team and is like so insanely good, gets like bucket after bucket after bucket, turns around, throws it in the air, and then manages to get it. Like that is Zamudo in everyone's eyes right now because he's so new to the game in the NACL. So I hope to see him against a more storied player like Denethor, who's had a very different journey to get here.
Yeah, I'm hyped for Zamudo this split. I guess that's my closing out point here. As we're gonna wrap up. As yeah, I mean, I remember in our preseason episode, I was kind of saying like, I'm about after that last split's AOE roster, I was like, I'm about at the end of my line with Zamudo. I think I'm
And
just
then
like,
he comes in and he beats the hell out of Surdy.
Yeah, because I mean, his first split with Wildcard I thought was promising, but he kept dying in side lanes, and then he had the split on AoE, and he was promising, but kept dying in side lanes. But now it's like, I don't know, his Udyr especially. I think he plays that Udyr just a little differently in that he is willing
he's more aggressive.
He's willing to use the bear stance, I think is really the big difference. Like he is, and I think that's critical to one of their wins this week. I'm trying to remember which one.
He will like stun his opponent in order to like deny them CS, and then he gets these like little micro advantages in gold that stack up.
And it's the game too, the massive comeback against TLC, I think is in no small part because like Zamudo is waiting in weird bushes, and it's like it's TLC's fault for not setting up Baron right. Like that's TLC's kryptonite right now is that they don't set up Baron right. But so it's TLC's fault for not having the top side of the Baron skirmish area warded. Like they don't have any wards from that top try or in the lane brush or. The lane brush doesn't exist anymore, but you know what I mean. They don't have it in the top try. They don't have it in the pixel brush. They don't have it by the entrance to blue buff. They don't have any wards for the Baron. So as Keel's approaching towards the ramp, he face checks Zamudo, who double taps bear stance and one shots him. But it's like the fact that Zamudo's like willing to do that he's willing to like hard camp a bush, double tap bear stance, and one shot you is like I think that's like what sets his Udyr apart from the rest and makes it like justifiable that they put such prio on it.
Yeah.
Because it's like I think it's like I don't know, like you look at the meta builds for like top lane Udyr and most people are like not even leveling Q until like level 8.
I don't know how lane Udyr works.
I just UGG did, and at least like the Plat plus stats, like with the recommended
Plat plus,
the Emerald plus stats are that you don't even put a point into Q until later. Here, wait, let's go Challenger only. The Challenger only stats are the same. The Challenger only is
okay.
Yeah, you just don't even get Q until level 8. But
because Q doesn't really provide you with anything meaningful in lane other
unless
than,
somebody
like,
face
damage.
checks into you and you get to one shot them.
Well,
yeah.
Oh yeah, that too. But you know,
I believe Zamudo is skilling the Q earlier than most players, and he's definitely using it differently than most players. So I don't.
We had like a VOD to look back on it. If only they uploaded like a VOD for us to like look at it like constantly or something.
This is an aside either way. The point being, I have been very impressed with Zamudo on this DSTL team, and it's like it's almost given me like a whole new outlook on him as a player. Like I think Zamudo might even be. We were talking about this a little bit. Like Zamudo might even be a player to look at if you're like an NRG or something. Because it seems like he has slotted into this existing system very, very well. And it's like he's like a little bit of an X factor that is really, I think, set DSTL apart in a way that Niles did not, even though the rest of the team is like unchanged around him.
I definitely think that like the top lane pool is the most accessible if you're looking for I mean, and nothing toward our top laners in tier 1, but like I think there are definitely replacements like Zamudo ready to go, right? Like I think Surdy is the most obvious choice, but I agree with you. I think Zamudo is up there as well. You were saying Faisal.
I like Faisal. Well, I like Phillip. I like
Yep.
Jenkins. Like there's a lot of good. The fact that Castle's in the LCS is like inexcusable, but I've said that in many formats and many times.
I don't know.
I
You
don't
know,
hate how he's performed as a player. I
he's
just
got a
don't.
good Aatrox,
Yeah,
and Aatrox just got a skin.
I just don't even know why you would like why was this guy even like picked up? Like he's done fine. Like I don't hate him, but it's like what is the thinking there? I don't get it.
If I can be a little bit selfish talking about this, I am glad that it was a Korean import who took the brunt in standings, because Immortals is most likely not going to do super great this split, instead of someone like Faisal, like
Sure.
is that mean of me to say? Because like,
I mean, I think whatever. I think it's wild to have like for any. I think it is a wild, and this is just delaying our closing out, but whatever. I think it is wild that we have a team in this league that is dead last, has been pretty much the dead last org for multiple splits now, and has no domestic rookies. Like I just don't. It's like unthinkable to me. Like I just don't
and it
like
kind of
what
feels
kind
like
of
every
sport
domestic.
like what sport is this true in? Sport or esport anywhere in the freaking world? Like where do you have these like bottom feeder teams where the whole starting lineup is people with years of experience?
Mhm.
It's just crazy. And I know right
Yeah.
now like Castle and Mass don't have years of experience, but they take up your import slots already. So at some point you are going to need to either drop them or somehow convince star domestic players to come and join Immortals, and you can't do that. So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
It's
mean, I feel like Kenvi is kind of a horror story for Immortals, because
sure.
he was the first, I would say, first and only, honestly, player that they really took a chance on right out of academy,
He's the
and
only. So
that didn't go
here's a
well.
crazy factoid for you. Kenvi is the only domestic rookie that Immortals has started since Revenge.
Yeah, and Revenge. Oh my God,
Is
what was
retired
it?
now.
Yeah, and Revenge is
It's been
done
his
now.
whole career.
That I feel so bad for Revenge as a player. Like, I don't think by any means he was like the greatest top laner we ever had at any point, or like he was shackled by Immortals. I actually certainly think he was slightly shackled by Immortals,
Oh
but
yeah.
not nearly to the point where
I mean,
it
he showed
was
that
like
on
a
EG. He got one split on a halfway decent team and had his best split
yeah.
ever by a lot. He got the
Yeah,
short end of
like
the
he,
stick.
but like the thing that bothers me about Immortals, oh my God, it almost makes me laugh with how ridiculous it is. I think Travis interviewed Revenge after he retired, and Revenge said something along the lines of like, oh yeah, they would give out like performance report
Oh,
cards
I remember this
after
whole.
every week, and Xerxes, when he was on Immortals, wanted to go home after seeing his the first week, and dude, that has got to be the most
I
demoralizing
remember
thing
this scandal. Yeah,
ever,
they fired that guy pretty
ever.
fast, but I
That's
remember that scandal.
so that's so scary, like, to be a part of. So like, oh my God, if I'm a new player, I'm gonna call myself a mortal man and peace out all the way over here and not go near them, because like hearing stuff like that, I would rather just try to take my chance and net myself on a better team, which is what I think some of the top teams, the top players in NACL are trying to do, right? They're waiting until they get like a good offer and then they'll take it, right? Which I think is certainly smart.
I don't know.
Um,
I think NACL players would. I think almost any NACL player, especially with the wages they make now,
really?
would go play for Immortals for LCS
Probably.
minimum.
I
Yeah,
guess.
like I think you do that.
Which is a little sad, honestly. It's a
I don't
little.
know. I mean, I would hope for that, right? I would hate to be in a position where like talented players like I don't know, if we've got to be in a franchised league, you got to be in a situation where like players are willing to go join Immortals.
I
But
guess.
I don't know. I mean, it's neither here nor there because Immortals isn't Immortals is building their roster by throwing darts. They're not interested in domestic rookies anyway, as they've demonstrated time and time again
Mhm.
over the years. So
And obviously now the pipeline for tier 2 to get into LCS is a little bit remedied because you do promote. But it kind of is a feels bad situation for a lot of players who I feel like do belong in the LCS, or their skill could be, ramped up to be in the LCS, but they can't because there aren't as many slots. So, and like you said, we still have this kind of import mentality, or at least some teams have this import mentality. Um, and so that just kind of is to me emphasizes the need to put yourself out there as a player, right? Like, to me, I've always like being good at League is good, but you have to have more ways to market yourself, not just as a player, but as a person. And this was kind of, as we're kind of closing out here, this was kind of a tweet. This was kind of exemplified by a tweet that LS recently made, where someone asked, "Oh, what do I need to do in order to go pro in League?" LS said something along the lines of like, "Oh, if you're asking, it's never going to work." Right? And LS has been very transparent about what it takes to be a pro. And it's more than just playing. And it's more than just, being able to be really good at the game. And I think that this increased bar of like how we're raising the bar higher every year just makes it harder for people to get themselves out there and not constantly want to play, because the slots are going to people that they consider to be more talented. So people are draining more hours into League and more hours into trying to get better and potentially get to LCS because they think, I can make it. But they are also losing out on other crucial factors of being marketable by other teams. So like they're basically gaining to lose in a way to get into the LCS. And I feel like it gets worse and worse with moves like the Americas. And so it is definitely a shitty situation for players like XU to be in, who, have to grind to get back to the LCS. But there are also other ways that you need to put yourself out there that can get teams to want to take you. Right. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like a lose-lose situation almost.
yeah, a little bit. I do think it's hard to make that ask of players when they're in an environment where it's so nearly impossible to make it up to the LCS
Cutthroat,
anyway.
honestly.
Yeah, like you need to be the best in academy the academy scene has been so neglected for so long that it's like you need to be the best in tier 2 by so much. And even then,
And even then,
you gotta
right?
kind of
Like,
get
it's
lucky, and you
crazy.
might just go the way of copy, and not even make it, right. But I mean, the
Like,
the other the other factor of that though is I think promotion and relegation for tier 2 did a lot to remedy that, right? Because that used to
yes.
be we used to say that about guys like Five Fire on the move from tier 3
Oh,
to tier
don't remind me
2.
of that guy. Oh my God.
But we did. Like we used to say, like if for those who followed Academy when it was still a closed ecosystem, that was what we talked about a lot. Is like how can what can this guy do, right? Especially in like early Proving Grounds era, it's like he won Proving Grounds on a tier 3 team, and it's like what else? How many tournaments does Five Fire have to win until they let him play in harder events?
Yeah.
And the answer was apparently there was no answer, right? He could win every
Yeah.
event that he plays in and
He
retire
did
having
so
won
well
every
too.
event that he
Like,
played in, and never getting the chance. So I do think that's been somewhat remedied, right? Like the fact that Samakin was able to get in so quickly and is now doing pretty well,
love that guy. Love you, Samakin.
and that like Toasty and like guy like Lens, right, and like Keel and so many of these guys who were like we look at right at the start of NACL players who were not getting picked up by academy teams. Keel, Faisal, Lens, I don't know. There's got to be other Shochi. Like there's so many names that were in the 11th through 16th place teams, right? Because the academy teams still had such higher budgets. They had first pick of the litter. There were so many players that were relegated to these like 11th through 16th place teams. Perry, as well.
Yeah.
So many players that were in these bottom 6 teams in a 16-team NACL that now are on the top echelon of teams in a 10-team NACL. I think it just goes to show that like the ability to have a more open circuit was so big for making sure that the right players get to the right spot. I hope that even this very, very tiny sliver of that for the LCS can have the same effect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really am hopeful for the America's merger. Like, obviously, I think everyone has a lot of thoughts on it, and most of them are mixed. But end of the day, no matter how you splice it, being able to have a path from tier 2 to tier 1 directly is really good for the players that have been stuck in academy for a really long time. It prevents stories like Five Fire. It prevents stories like Copy from existing and continuing to, kind of go unanswered in the tier 2 space, and that is really good. So I am bummed that we are, still having players lose out on these big opportunities who should be in this area, because I think there is a lot of potential, even in the tier 3 space, for us to promote some of these players up into tier 2 and maybe even potentially tier 1 someday, that we're missing out on. But, you win some and you lose some. I definitely think it's not a black and white scenario. I certainly think it's shades of gray. And so I am hoping that with this move, like, people are more open to looking at tier 2, because it is now directly impacting tier 1. Like, team owners will be like, oh, tier 2? You mean this, pipeline that players are constantly coming into and our competition is constantly flooding in from? Oh yeah, we should probably look at players from there, because, like, there's so many examples, right? 5 Fire Copy, like you mentioned. Surdy is a great example. I would hate for Surdy to turn out like those two. He probably won't, thank God. But yeah, it's a good thing at the end of the day, and I hope that the connection that is being breached by that gets more attention, and allows the pipeline to be a little bit more of a merge, instead of like forced together in a way.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's as good a spot as any to close things out on the
Yeah.
night. It's been fun chatting Quacks. R.I.P. Slayer. Hopefully he'll be able to rejoin us next week.
Thank you, Grump, for joining us.
Thank you, Gromp.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Always fun to do a Gromp episode. It was supposed to be a one-off joke once upon a time, but now he's been a regular guest, so always good to have Gromp in the back
we make
pocket.
a Twitter announcement about him next as a co-host.
No,
that
always,
would be hilarious.
Gromp is. Yeah, you hope to not have too many Gromp episodes, but at least we have him as a running joke, if nothing else. So, thank you very much, Gromp. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in at home. We will see you guys next time on the Salt Mine.